Super Mario Odyssey is a monumental achievement of a game. It takes you on a grand adventure as you explore different worlds and complete objectives to earn rewards in the form of power moons. Using these collectibles to power a hat-shaped spaceship to make your way from kingdom to kingdom. This adventure introduces new elements such as the ability for Mario to capture his enemies with the throw of his hat and take control of them in order to overcome obstacles and progress. By doing this, it really changes up the gameplay and sets it apart from the other big 3D Mario games, such as 64, Sunshine, and both Galaxy games with this unique mix-up. And with the relatively recent passing of the 3rd year anniversary, I figured I'd celebrate by talking about the original Super Mario Odyssey, also known as Space Station Silicon Valley. That's right, this video isn't going to be on Super Mario Odyssey, but rather a game that predates it by 19 years. Space Station Silicon Valley originally released on the N64 on October 21st, 1998 in North America, then in Europe about a month later. There was also a 2D adaptation released on the Game Boy Color in 1998, as well as a port of the N64 version for the PlayStation the following year, but those two releases were PAL exclusives. And also, the name for the PlayStation port was changed to Evo Space Adventures for some reason, and they also changed the music from the original N64 version. I have no idea why they'd make this change, but from what I've seen and heard from it, it doesn't look to be too good of a port. So it'd probably be for the best if you avoided that version if you couldn't get your hands on the N64 original. Funnily enough, this game was developed by DMA Design, which would eventually go on to be known as a little company called Rockstar Games. Who would have thought, right? I also wanted to mention that while this game wasn't released in Japan, there's actually a Game Shark code that allows you to access Japanese text for the game. I guess the reason being is that the internal coding between the versions of the game is practically the same, which is why it's such an easy change. So if you ever felt the urge to play Space Station Silicon Valley with Japanese text, you can fulfill that urge. However, I do want to mention that if you want to do this, make sure you haven't already started a save file. Because after I attempted to do this, all the save files I previously had were deleted. Thankfully, I attempted this after I completed the game. I don't know if this was because of my copy of the game somehow being corrupted, or because of the Game Shark code, so keep this in mind before you try it, that way you don't end up making the mistake I did and seeing your time go to waste. Anyway, Silicon Valley stars a human and robot duo, Dan Danger and Evil respectively, working as heroes for hire. Due to the resurgence of the space station, the president of the world sends them to investigate the titular space station, Silicon Valley, after the lead scientist and Marines are presumed dead. This mysterious space station appears every 1,000 years, and just so happen to resurface and is set to crash into the Earth. So on their way, the duo end up crashing into an asteroid and make a hard landing onto Silicon Valley. After their crash landing, Evo, the robot player character, is ejected and flies into the glass boundary and his outer shell breaks. With his outer shell no longer intact, Evo, in the form of a small microchip, goes inside the recently deceased dog Roger, who died as a result of the duo's crash. Then just like that, the game starts and the player gains control of Evo in the body of the former Roger. So with all that plot out of the way, as Evo, you're supposed to fulfill certain objectives in order to progress to the next zone, with the main focus being to explore the rest of the space station to retrieve Evo's outer shell parts and prevent Silicon Valley from crashing into the Earth. There's a total of 4 different zones that are part of the station: Europe, Ice, Jungle, and Desert, with the starting point being Europe. As you make your way through the different levels in the 4 zones, you'll find yourself taking control of different animals in order to explore the level, collect power cells, collect golden souvenirs, and complete level-specific objectives. The stages in this game really manage to adhere to the theme of their specific zones, but are significantly different enough to really distinguish them from each other. Playing as different animals and using their different abilities also keeps the gameplay from being too repetitive. In order to change into one of the many technologically integrated animals, you have to kill them by different means, then transfer over to them. As a dog, you might have to use your bite ability to do that, but as a hyena, you'll have to make them laugh to death. In Silicon Valley, you're able to play as about 30 plus different animal types, with a few being variations of some of the existing animals. One such example is a normal camel that spits water, or a cannon camel that appropriately fires cannons. There's just so much fun to be had with this game from the variety of stages, as well as the added mix of puzzles thrown in there. The last level of every zone is a level focused on obtaining a part of Evo's shell in the form of his head, torso, arms, and legs. They also function very differently than normal stages. For example, in one you play as a biplane dog as you go through rings and shoot down enemies, or another one where you might play as a walrus and race against other walruses to earn a part. These stages are necessary in order to put Evo back together and play the last level. Each normal stage contains 15 power cells for a grand total of 390 collectible power cells. You can try and collect all these power cells if you want, but they don't do too much other than turn Evo's outer shell gold when he's reassembled. So they're not really necessary, but sort of act as an incentive to the player to explore the level more, maybe challenge them a bit to try and find them all. In addition to power cells being in each stage, there's also a golden souvenir obtained by completing a hidden requirement. The requirements are different for each stage, such as one of the stages involving beating a dog in a race, and yes, for even at least one or two of them, killing the animals. If you manage to collect all of the souvenirs, you're rewarded with a chance to play a hidden level in the form of a 2D shoot 'em up. At least that's what I'd say if it were possible by normal means. The reason why it's impossible is because of the stage Fat Bear Mountain. The requirement for this stage is to quickly hit the 3 levers by any means. If done right, the souvenir in the form of a golden faucet will appear, just like any other souvenir you collect. Nothing seems too off about this so far, right? However, even if you completed the objective, due to a glitch, it's impossible to actually collect this souvenir. And this glitch actually applies to any version of the game. Normally, this would prevent you from playing the stage that was meant as a reward for collecting all these souvenirs. But if you want to play the hidden level, don't worry, because there's actually a code in the game that you can input at the file select screen in order to access it. This code is down, up, Z, L, down, left, Z, down. If you input it correctly, you'll hear a chime to notify you as such. It might take you a few tries because you have to enter the code in pretty quickly. But once you hear a chime, just select a file, press left, and voila! You're now able to play that shoot 'em up level you never knew you wanted. I also can't forget to mention the music in this game, because it's actually pretty catchy. While I was playing the game, I found myself subconsciously humming along to some of the bops. Take for example the main theme of this game, which also happens to be used for the first level. It represents the comical and groovy tone of the game, and all the wacky animals and levels you get to see throughout it. Because after this comes racing dogs, hella rabbits, and pogo rabbits to name a few. What I find great about the music is that it's actually being played in the level. What I mean by this is that in the stages, there's a few speakers scattered throughout them. If you destroy one, the music progressively gets lower until it stops completely when they're all destroyed. Talk about a neat little Easter egg, right? But to me, there's just so much to this game beyond the surface. While admittedly one of the only problems I had with this game were some minor instances where I found myself fighting against the camera, those instances were very few and far between, and in no way stopped me from enjoying this game. This is a wacky space adventure that, if you give it a try, will probably have you hooked onto it fairly early. It's a game that wasn't afraid to take chances and be different, and doesn't really take itself seriously, which I find to be part of the charm. A game like this is something I don't think we saw repeated until the release of Super Mario Odyssey almost 19 years later. I can't recommend this game enough, and I hope you have the chance to try it out for yourself. That's all I have to say for now. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.